Hello and welcome to the show. Listen, we've got a great show planned for you. I always talk about this year being intentional. That's what it's all about. It's about what God has purposed you in your life and what he wants you to do. Not what you want to do, but what he wants you to do. But more importantly, being intentional, going after the things that you're thinking about, going after your dreams and living those dreams, bringing them to a reality. So that's what this year is all about being intentional. I told you we have a great show planned for you. This is Black History Month. Of course, I celebrated and we celebrated here on the Tammy Show 365 days of the year. But today, our special guest, phenomenal guest, is none other than Dr. Henry Tisdale, former president of Claflin University, the 8th president of Claflin University, and author of Beyond the Western Wall, Audacious Transformation of a Small Liberal Arts College. So I want you to sit back, relax, and enjoy, because it's coming up next.
The Cecil Williams South Carolina Civil Rights Museum is the Palmetto State's first and only museum. It honors a generation of people, black and white, throughout the state of South Carolina who deserve to be remembered for their unselfish commitments and sacrifices. Enjoy an immersive and entertaining virtual tour. For more information, visit www.cecilwilliams.com.
Hello, everybody. It's Finkley of The Michael Finkley Show, and you're watching Gold right now. Why? You're watching The Tammy Show. Stay tuned.
Hello and welcome back to the show. I told you we've got a great show planned for you, and thank you for joining us. Well, let me tell you a little bit about our guest today. He is was a devoted husband to his late wife, the Mrs. Alice Carson Tisdale, First Lady Tisdale. He's a dedicated father to his daughter, Dr. Danica Tisdale, his son, Brandon Tisdale, a loving grandfather to Asa and Anansa. Now, in 1994, he became the 8th president of the prestigious Claflin University and HBCU, Historically Black College and University in Orangeburg, South Carolina, where he also earned his bachelor's degree in mathematics. He received a master's degree from Temple University, and he is the first African American to receive a doctorate in mathematics from Dartmouth. He has received numerous awards, to include the Order of the Palmetto, which is the highest civilian award presented by the governor of South Carolina, and many more. I could go on, but one thing I can say about this extraordinary man is that he is a child of God and he's loved by many, and he is a transformational leader. Come on out, Dr. Henry N. Tisdale.
Good evening, and thank you very much, Tammy, for an extraordinary introduction, I must say. And I'm very pleased to be on the Tammy Show.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for being on the show. Dr. Tisdale, you look mighty spiffy there. Look like you're getting ready to go into the office.
Well, even though I'm in retirement, I'm always engaged. And each day I rise, each day I enter my period of meditation, connecting with my God. And of course, each day I move forward in that day with a purpose. So this evening, I have a great purpose.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So I certainly wanted to represent in the right way.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Tisdale. Dr. Tisdale, I always start the show by asking, and people have asked me, why have you done this so many years? And I ask this one question because I feel it's important for people to understand who you are in your own words. I can give all the accolades and talk about you, but when someone comes up to you and they say, who is Henry Nehemiah Tisdale, what do you say to them, Dr. Tisdale?
Well, I like to say to them that, I have a story, and my story begins in the cotton and tobacco fields of Williamsburg County, South Carolina. I was born the son of sharecroppers, and it was that sharecropping and farm experience, I think, that gave me the impetus to want to gain an education. It was cotton Tammy, that sent me to college.
Yeah.
I didn't want to do
Yeah.
that anymore. I also let them know that I was very fortunate to have parents who valued education and to have parents who were, people of faith who believed in God and wanted the best for their children. I grew up in a community of people who nurtured me, my teachers, my pastor, my principal and all, and people who believed in me and said that, that Henry Tisdale can become somebody great one day. And, I believe that. And it was that humble beginning, if you will, Tammy, that really sent me on to Claflin University. And you talked about earning, the degrees and the like, but not letting my humble beginning define who I was going to be. Not letting the fact that I grew up as the son of sharecroppers define where I would end up. Not letting that stop me from becoming the first African American to earn a PhD from one of the Ivy League institutions, Dartmouth College, from working with some phenomenal mathematicians, by the way, mathematicians who were legends in the field of mathematics and computer science, such as John Kemeny and Thomas Kurtz. These phenomenal mathematicians, by the way, Kemeny was the president of Dartmouth College, and I served as his teaching assistant. But these phenomenal mathematicians really developed the foundation in the world of computing that allowed innovators such as Bill Gates and Steve Jobs bring to the fore the innovations that they did. But, Tammy, I did it all because God was always with me and smiling on me. That is the way that I introduced.
Wow. Henry Nehemiah Tisdale. I tell you, Dr. Tisdale, listening to you and I've had time that, always spent time with you and of course, First Lady Alice Carson Tisdale, and just seeing the two of you together and how you created Claflin University over those 25 years. But I want to go back because when you talk about mathematics, what was your inspiration for you to choose mathematics as your major in college? Because I can only imagine calculus, derivatives, this, that, algebra,
Well, Tammy, I mentioned that I was fortunate to be born into a family of parents who valued education. Where did the mathematics come from? I've got to give the credit to my mother, a phenomenal woman who at the time had only gone as far as the 8th grade. But when it came to education, she did not compromise at all. And what I learned through my life was that this was a woman that had a phenomenal mathematical mind, not only for mathematics, but for remember anything, rhymes and riddles and puzzles, and you name it. She was a phenomenal woman and unfortunately came along at a time when South Carolina and the world was not ready to take advantage of her phenomenal mind. So I give credit to the fact that I think I inherited some of those mathematical genes from my mother, and later on decided that. But an interesting part of that, Tammy, is the fact that when my parents sent me to college, they didn't send me to college to become a mathematician. They sent me to college to become a medical doctor. We all went to college to become a medical doctor, to come back home and, and serve, the community. But I found out that the love for mathematics was there, that the passion was there, that all those hours that my mother spent with me solving mathematical problems had led me to become a great problem solver. And unfortunately, she also talked to me about making my own decision in life as well. So when I got into college after my freshman year, being a pre-med student, I just decided the passion is mathematics. I know it. I've seen my mother do it. I can do it. And of course, great disappointment to my mother and father, I changed my major to become a mathematics major and a mathematician.
Wow. Well, speaking of mathematician and that was your love, what was your biggest dream growing up? What did you dream about?
I must be totally honest. Growing up in rural South Carolina, Williamsburg County, it was really a tough life. I, attended, segregated schools. I knew that we were all limited as Black people in terms of what we could do and what we could attain in South Carolina. So honestly, my greatest dream was to be able to leave South Carolina, to pursue opportunities in the world. I just knew it was a bigger world out there than in South Carolina. So in the back of my mind, everything I did was about how does this help me to get out of South Carolina to a place where I can pursue opportunities and dreams.
Wow. And when you left South Carolina after graduating from Claflin University, you went to Temple. And then from Temple, you did your doctorate and earned your doctorate at Dartmouth. So my question is, being the first African-American graduate in the doctoral program at Dartmouth College, what was that experience like?
Well, I must tell you that I must admit, it wasn't my plan to attend Dartmouth. I mean, it was my plan to earn the PhD in mathematics, but I had several other schools that I wanted to attend. Some of the top schools in the country, and of course, I applied to those institutions and was accepted and got fellowships. I did not plan to attend Dartmouth. One of my colleagues came forward and said, "You've applied to all of these schools. What about Dartmouth College?" Wow. And I said, "Dartmouth College? Why would I? Why would I want to go to an institution in Hanover, New Hampshire, where it's cold all the time and there are no Black people?"
Yes, sir.
So it was really responding, if you will, to a dare. He said, "Well, great mathematicians there, great program. I dare you." Because I didn't have an Ivy League school on my list. I had Michigan and I had, University of Illinois, and at a lot of schools on my list. He said, "I dare you," and it was a dare, and I applied, and I applied, and yes, I was awarded a fellowship to become a Dartmouth Fellow. And Tammy, I received a telephone call from one of the professors at Dartmouth that said, "We want you to come to Dartmouth College. We see what your interests, where your interests lie. We have researchers. I'm there. The president is in that area of research as well, which is probability theory, optimization theory. We want you at Dartmouth." To my surprise, Tammy, I declined all those other fellowships and accepted the Dartmouth one.
Wow.
But it was true when I got there. There were no Black people.
you were it right now. You were it right now.
I was the only, not just in mathematics, I was the only Black student in the graduate school at Dartmouth when I got there. And yes, it was cold. And yes, there were some professors at Dartmouth who didn't receive the memo. They didn't receive the memo that a Black PhD student was coming. So when I walked into the class, into some of the classrooms, I would get that expression as to, wait a minute, are you here to pick up the,
pick up the mail,
the trash, whatever?
Yeah,
but,
right.
But I would also say that, in spite of those little surprises along the way, I got great support. When you become the teaching assistant for the president of the college, of Dartmouth College, it said something about how they valued my presence and how they valued me as a PhD student and a scholar at that institution. So in spite of all that was going on, and I might tell you, there's a whole other side of this story, by the way, because the year I arrived at Dartmouth was the first year that they admitted women. So the whole issue of diversity was playing out at Dartmouth. Dartmouth was founded in 1779 to educate Native Americans. They didn't have one on campus. So they were trying to recruit Native Americans to come to campus. And they were trying to recruit African Americans. And I was the only one in the PhD program. They recruited undergraduates. And whereas my experience was one where I was insulated by my professors and the work that we were doing, just to be totally honest, undergraduate African American students were not well received. Time for them at Claflin, at Dartmouth College. But beyond just surprising a few professors as I walked into the classroom, got a great education, and the total experience at Dartmouth really did define me in terms of a mathematician and as a critical thinker.
Dr. Tisdale, as I'm listening to you talk about your experience as the only African American graduate in the doctoral program, as well as in the whole graduate studies program, it reminds me of when I was a young girl and I was one of 5 that integrated our elementary school in Charleston, South Carolina. So my question becomes, did you feel that loneliness? Did you feel the loneliness? Were there times when you were talked to negatively or anything, any kind of thing like that? And how did you handle it?
Well, I can tell you that, I mentioned that there was some surprised look as I entered some of the classes. I can also tell you that whereas there was great support, many of the students, of course, were coming from other places. For example, we all shared offices. My roommate was Bruce Edwards, who was coming from California, and Bruce was coming from Stanford. And Bruce, of course, his dad was Donald Edwards, who was a congressman from the state of California, and by the way, who was sitting on the Nixon impeachment panel at the time. And so the students were coming from other places, from all over, from Harvard, from Caltech, and Princeton, and other places. We had a volleyball team. We played a lot of volleyball in the mathematics department, by the way. The faculty members in general were very inviting, but I did have an incident that I had to deal with. One was sitting in a statistics course. I had, sitting there, the students began to talk about how, Black students were being allowed to come into Dartmouth, and of course, not having the required SAT score. And this was about undergraduate students, not having the SAT scores and not being totally qualified to be at Dartmouth College and the like. And I had to decide, sitting in that class, how do I handle this? Do I confront immediately, or do I think about it, think it through, and then react? I decided that I would sit it through, and at the very end of the class, I asked the professor, may I have a conversation with you? And he said, yes. And so we walked to his office, and I sat down and I shared with him how I felt being exposed to that conversation, and and those inferences that were being tossed about in the class. And that as a student of Dartmouth, I did not think I had to actually be exposed to in that way. And I did not have to be insulted in that way. And I was holding him responsible for the environment that was being created in the class. And that, if he handled it, that would be it. But I was not going to accept it. And, and he admitted that he let things get out of hand, and they forgot that I was in the class.
Wow. So you were invisible, in other words.
I was invisible. They forgot that I was in the class. And he said, he apologized and said, it'll never happen again. And it did not.
Wow.
And our relationship didn't change beyond that. Once we had that conversation, and I made it clear that it was just not acceptable, and I would not accept it.
Wow. Go ahead, Dr. Tisdale.
And we moved on. Now, you did ask the question about loneliness.
Yes.
Yes. Hanover is a very isolated place, very isolated to get to in the first place. I mean, you've got to land in Boston, and today you take a bus for three and a half hours, maybe, to ride from Boston, or you go into New York and maybe take 5 hours, or New Haven, Connecticut, and the like. It's very isolated. And in a place where there were literally very few Black people, there was nothing that made you feel like there was nothing real about it. So what did I do? I planned trips to Boston. I planned weekends to New York City. I planned New Yorks to New Haven, Connecticut. And I would say I'm on these trips to experience some of the real world, to see if it's still going on out there, because Hanover was not real.
Well, Dr. Tisdale, on that note, we're going to take a break. And when we come back, what we're going to do is we're going to dive into Beyond the Western Wall and your transformation leadership, because I want to thank you for being so transparent, because you shared a lot as we are in this Black History Month, and you shared a lot that can help people understand what it was like. Only way people know is about the stories that we tell. And so I want to thank you for that. But we're going to take a break, Dr. Tisdale, if you just sit still, and we're going to be right back.
I will.
Okay. Thank you, folks. We'll be right back.
The Orangeburg County Conference Center supports downtown Orangeburg and our surrounding communities. The 6,000 plus square foot space is ideal for groups of up to 400 people attending corporate meetings, conventions, workshops, and special events. Conference Center staff are inspired to ensure that everyone can enjoy the modern amenities. State-of-the-art ballroom that accommodates up to 400 guests banquet style and 430 guests theater style. A warming kitchen with hot boxes, ice machine, refrigerator, freezer, and counter space. A lobby that accommodates 150 guests with special events outdoors. The comfortable outdoor amphitheater has a video wall and seating. Adjacent to the amphitheater is 12,000 plus square feet of green space that extends events outside, plus complimentary on-site event parking and additional parking across the street. Your event can take place all in one spectacular location. We welcome your special event in Orangeburg.
You're tuning in to the Tammy TV show, and we bringing in that Christian rap heat with Big Geek. What up?
I want to thank Big Yeet. I also want to thank my friend Dr. Michael Finkley, Grammy nominee, for being on the show and always being so supportive. You know, folks, if you're just joining us, I'm talking with Dr. Henry in Tisdale, the former president of Claflin, the prestigious, as I must say, Claflin University. 25 years of presidency, the 8th president of Claflin University, and now he's written his book. He has penned it. It is Beyond the Western Wall, Audacious Transformation of a Small Liberal Arts College. And so, Dr. Tisdale, welcome again to the show, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Tammy.
Yes, you know, in the beginning, I wanted people to understand who Dr. Henry in Tisdale, who you are and what you've been doing and how you have got to the point where you became the president of your alma mater. And so I want to ask you that before we get into the book. How did that happen? And were you looking or wanting or dreaming to be a president of an HBCU or any college?
Well, Tammy, I must admit that in 1985, I was invited to have a conversation with the vice president for academic affairs at Delaware State University, who informed me that the president of Delaware State, Dr. Luna Imashu, wanted to nominate me for an American Council on Education fellowship. And this particular program, by the way, is what I would consider the premier leadership development program for persons who aspire to become a college president. My first response to the vice president was, no, I really wasn't interested. I was a faculty member, doing what I was doing. She convinced me that you have nothing to lose. You have a year to spend. You keep your salary. You can be mentored by a president away from the university. You can visit other presidents. You can look and see what leadership is all about. And you can look and see what it would be like for you to be in a position of leadership at a higher level and the influence that you might have. So I said, okay, let him nominate me. I was nominated. And by the way, there are 3,000 colleges across the country. They were selecting 30. And I was one of 30 selected by the American Council on Education Fellows Program in 1985. And I then had to decide where I wanted to spend my year as sort of like an intern, if you will, serving with the president. I chose the president at the University of Delaware to serve as his special assistant for a year, to shadow him, to visit other presidents around the country, the President Bach at Harvard University, President Shane at the University of Wisconsin, the president at the University of Miami, Tad Foote, and President Richardson at Morgan State University. And I got a chance to travel to Washington, to network. And at the end of the year, I returned to Delaware State University. And to my surprise, after being offered an administrative position, I accepted. I left my Department of Mathematics and became Assistant Vice President for Strategic Planning, Budget, and Information Services. That was my introduction into leadership and higher education. And of course, later on, I was selected as the Vice President for Academic Affairs and the senior senior vice president at Delaware State University. And then came 1993. Claflin is now searching for a president. I must say this, Tammy, when I left South Carolina in 1965, I waved South Carolina goodbye. I was not looking to return to South Carolina.
Yes, sir.
At the time, here we are in 1993. My wife, Alice, was really moving forward in her career, having been honored as a superstar educator for the state of Delaware by the State Chamber of Commerce. My daughter was now in high school. My son was in middle school. We were doing fine in Delaware, but there was something, that said, why not? After being nominated by several persons, many of whom were alumni, I did decide to apply. And lo and behold, I was selected as the 8th president of Claflin University. Now, I must tell you that when I was selected, Alice and I had a decision to make, because we then said, okay, now it has happened. We'll have to decide what we're going to do. Are you going to accept it? But we prayed about it before. We'd gone into, times of discernment, thinking about, would we go to South Carolina? Would we do this? And at this point, when we stepped back on this occasion to pray about it, we knew that it was God's plan. It wasn't my plan or her plan, but it was God's plan that I would return to South Carolina to lead my alma mater into the 21st century. So knowing that we were following God's plan and God's guidance, we were all aboard in terms of coming to Claflin University to begin the presidency, and to begin it with a purpose of changing Claflin, repositioning Claflin, creating an institution to be recognized as one of the premier liberal arts institutions in the southeastern region of the United States. That is what brought us home to Claflin University.
To Orangeburg, South Carolina, little old Orangeburg.
By the way, Tammy,
yes, sir.
The only difficulty we had was convincing my daughter.
I was going to say.
Who said to us, Orangeburg, South Carolina, we're going to. Why would anyone in his right mind want to go to Orangeburg, a town that doesn't even have a shopping mall?
And by the way, I can see Danica saying that, being the Miss Georgia, and all, and especially Mrs. Tisdale, with the way they dress and love to shop and always looking fine. So I can get that. I get that. Yes, sir. But when you came to Claflin University, you had the opportunity, as you said, to change it, to make it the premier college in the Southeast, and more importantly, South Carolina. And when you talk about, so as we're moving, and I want to progress into the meaning of the Western Wall, because you wrote the book and it's all about your transformational leadership. What is the meaning of Beyond the Western Wall?
Well, when I was a student at Claflin University, by the way, I recognized that there was this wall that ran along Magnolia Street, now was College Avenue, almost the length of the campus, as you will. And how in the 1960s, by the way, the wall had its meaning. The wall protected us. We did almost everything in the 60s. This was the days of the civil rights, the height of the civil rights movement. We felt safe behind the Western Wall. We didn't do parades and things out in the streets. We did all of our homecoming activities and the like behind the Western Wall. But I realized that when I returned to Claflin, that it was a time for change. It was a time when Claflin needed to be known and recognized for its greatness beyond that Western Wall. That we needed to begin to plan to transform Claflin in such a way that it would become recognized not just in Orangeburg and not just behind the Western Wall, but it would become recognized throughout the Southeast and the nation as one of the premier liberal arts institutions. So the name Beyond the Western Wall reminds us that all of our work and all of our efforts was about moving Claflin, transforming her, and making her competitive, making her students competitive, making the faculty competitive, making her known beyond the Western Wall throughout the country and indeed the world.
Wow. You know, Dr. Tisdale, as I'm listening to you, and this is the first time that you and I have really had this type of conversation. I mean, we've talked
Yes.
about you and growing up and things like that, but and from King Street, by the way, McCartry's from King Street. Okay, so we
Right.
think we might be related, but
Right.
anyway, you know, just having this conversation with you and learning about the 25 years that you and First Lady Alice Carson Tisdale that you all did when you came. I mean, to look at Claflin now and to see the transformation of how your transformative leadership has broadened Claflin, and now with the new president and all of that, but just what you did. So I want you to talk about transformation leadership and what that means, because you talk about, some people say what transformation leadership is, but you have your own definition about transformational leadership.
Yeah. One thing that, the book is about helping others to understand a very unique strategy of change. And of course, we did it at Claflin University, a small liberal arts institution, my alma mater, one of America's best colleges. That's where we did it. But transformational visioning and leadership is a strategy that we used. And the book was written to share this strategy and the success that occurred from using this strategy and results that we got. So I use the book to define it, and I like for people to understand that when we think of transformation, it's a type of change. Mm-hmm. And of course, everyone talks about change, and there are different types of changes. I mean, you can think of just incremental change. I mean, you can change something by just painting it. You can change it by just making a little bit better, just improving it, new and improved. Transformational change is a totally different kind of change. Visioning, when people think of visioning, they think, well, it's just a matter of, looking ahead. But transformational vision, and I define it, and I try to help everyone to understand that a transformational vision, and I try to help them to understand this in the book, that a transformational vision is an idea and a plan which creates the future with very specific and bold promises. Promises like, we're going to make this institution one of the premier liberal arts institutions. You make bold promises about doing something new. And then, of course, you don't just make those promises, because if you just simply have a vision without action, some folks call that hallucination. Okay. Right. So you've got to invent ways, a plan, a strategic plan to bring it about with full integrity. So it's creating something new. It's having a plan, and it's having integrity. When I think of leaders, I think of one leader in particular that I like to lift up in terms of being a transformational visionary leader. And that leader was President John F. Kennedy. Remember when he said, yes, we are going to send a man to the moon and bring that person back safely. And we're going to do it in the 60s. That's a transformational vision. Yeah. That moves things, that changes things. Remember, in the 60s, I mean, you may not remember, but I remember that Russia had already sent up its Sputnik. Okay.
Yes.
The United States needed to respond. So Kennedy came up with this vision, transformational vision. It was a strategy to change how we thought about the United States. It was a challenging strategy. Now, this is important. It was a challenging strategy that he brought forth. It was inspiring, by the way. We all thought if Russia can do it, we can do it too. And so it was this vision was inspiring, and it was believable that if Russia can do it, we believe we can do it. So it was an actionable vision, and it was measurable. He said, we're going to do it within the 60s.
That's right.
So in the book, if you read enough of it, you begin to understand that transformational vision is a strategy to move things, to create something new. And that's the strategy that we use at Claflin to bring about impactful change.
Wow. And all people have to do is read the book. My favorite part of the book is learning about your history, your family history.
Yeah.
But my other favorite part of the book is seeing the pictures, the transformation of the college, and all of the pictures that you have in your gallery. And learning the people that are there, and all, when you look and you see Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, Obama, President Obama, First Lady Michelle Obama. I'm just naming those because those are familiar to some of the younger people. But when you see some of all of the pictures, how you transformed Claflin into what it is today. And moving forward, you really got Claflin. You prepared Claflin for the future. You prepared Claflin to be ready for all of the things that had happened, to be, in terms of the COVID and all of that. Tisdale, I mean, the computers, everything that you did really prepared Claflin for the next steps. And yes, sir.
Everything, it was intentional. You used the word intentional.
Intentional, yes, sir.
It just wasn't haphazard. It just wasn't, well, whatever happens next, we'll take it. It was well planned. It was intentional. If we did it, we intended to do it. If we did it a very specific way to bring about the results that we wanted. And when you looked at some of the images in our gallery and the like, you mentioned a number of people. We brought visionary leaders to our campus to help move us all. Ambassador Andrew Young,
oh yes,
who was a regular visit. Of course, he was visiting his grandson, who was attending Claflin University, and other leaders and the like. All of that was intentional. All of that was to get the name of Claflin out there. All of that was to inspire others to come join us at Claflin University. All of that was to get well known, so $1 more might say, I know what Claflin's all about. I'm ready to invest $1 million in this institution. Right. All that we did was intentional, purposeful in terms of the academic programs we built on the campus with the STEM focus, with the students that we recruited and groomed and prepared to become competitive, again, not just behind the wall, but competitive beyond the walls of Claflin University, to be competitive in bringing home national scholarships for the first time to the institution. All of that was intentional. The way we transformed the whole campus itself in terms of buildings and the ambiance on the campus, moving Claflin to a point where Black Southern Belle magazine listed Claflin as one of the 10 most heavenly HBCU campuses. All of that was intentional. In every segment, everything we did was purposeful. Even athletics, moving athletics from where we were into NCAA and the CIAA was positioning her in such a way that when people talked about, who are the top HBCUs? Well, we had a record. U.S. News and World Report affirmed it, that Claflin University was one of the top 10 HBCUs in the country.
That's right.
When people talked about, who are the top national liberal arts institutions? We had national publications. We're saying Claflin University is a top tier national liberal arts institution. All of it, Tammy, was intentional to move us to that point, to reposition us, to create something new and different.
Yes, sir. And you did that. You did that. And so, Dr. Tisdale, as we're coming to the close of the interview, there are just a couple more questions I want to ask you. When people see this, we've talked about the successes, but what were some of the challenges that you faced during your time of trying to make sure that you transformed the audacious transformation of the small liberal arts college? What were some of those challenges that you faced?
Well, to begin with, I think the one that I knew that was going to be there was enrollment. Um, you know, with integration came the majority institution into our community, if you will, and plucked away the best and the brightest. And we were left in some cases to accept what was there. It was challenging to come and to say, we will not accept that. That if we're going to change the institution, that we're going to have to create strategies that will make Claflin competitive in recruiting our fair share of the best and brightest students. And we created some strategies. We decided to focus on the STEM disciplines, and we decided to create an honors college, a college within the university, if you will. All of those were strategies to help us in recruiting some of the best and brightest students. We also had to deal with, during my time, let's say the 2008, I think it was the 2008, the Great Recession.
Recession, yes.
A recession, a time when we were caught in the middle of a fundraising campaign. When we almost had to make a decision, do we stop this campaign? Our donors are struggling because of the recession. What do we do? That was a mighty challenge. But we didn't stop the campaign, by the way. We found strategies and we redesigned the campaign to bring about success, raising over $105 million during a very stressful time. We also had challenges of something that was called a Parent Plus. And this was a loan program that had been put in place so that parents could borrow money to support their children in school. Well, the Department of Education, without announcing to anyone, to parents, students, or even to institutions, changed the criteria for qualifying. And many of our students, many minority students and students at historically Black colleges were left in the cold because parents no longer could get the money to send their students to college. We then had to come up with strategies of how do we continue to support students to come. We did. Those were very challenging times that we had to deal with, and yet keep the momentum, because remember now, our vision and our momentum was about creating one of the premier liberal arts institutions. We promised we were going to do it. So in spite of these challenges, we kept moving forward.
Right. And you kept moving forward. So Dr. Tisdale, that leads me to this question. What legacy do you want to leave? And what do you want people to remember about you?
Well, I want people to remember that I came as an agent of change to Claflin University. A change not for my own purpose, but for the purpose of ensuring access to young people who were coming from places, the type of place I came from a Williamsburg County, from poor rural areas. A change agent creating access and success for those who are marginalized. That's how I want to be remembered. An agent of change, but a change for the purpose of helping others who may be less fortunate.
Yeah, Dr. Tisdale, I tell you what, this has been a transformative talk for me as well. Just hearing you and learning more about what you have done. But, I've read the book. And so people have asked, what's the secret sauce? I can tell folks right now, you need to get beyond the Western Wall. Yes. That's how you're going to learn the secret to Claflin University. Everybody says, how did Claflin do this? How did Claflin do that? We always used to hear that, Dr. Tisdale. Yes. Yes. How did Claflin do this? What's the secret? Well, it's not a secret anymore. It's in Dr. Tisdale's book, and I'm hoping that people will go ahead and purchase the book. Dr. Tisdale, what would your final words that you'd like to say, and what you'd like viewers to glean from this interview?
Well, what I would like to say is this: that there was a purpose for writing the book. And yes, we want people to read the book, but I want them to understand why the book was written in the first place. The book was written so that we could share more readily. People ask questions. You said that. Well, what is Claflin doing? How did they do it? The book was written so that we could share more readily the Claflin success stories, how we repositioned an institution that was, yes, struggling to survive to a point where it is now thriving. The book was written so that other small liberal arts institutions, historically Black colleges included, could read it and possibly develop a strategy or adopt this strategy that we use to reposition their institution. Telling the Claflin success story for the purpose of helping others, and also telling the Claflin success story for the purpose of moving Claflin University beyond the Western Wall.
Yes, sir. So, Dr. Tisdale, after you said all of that, and we want people to understand that students need to read this book as well, because it's going to help them with their leadership skills. Am I correct in saying that?
Oh, it's a book written for students who, and I always encourage students to think of themselves as future visionary leaders. I believe that all can lead, and the book is written in such a way that I think students who aspire to become visionary leaders, in reading this book, would, one, have an example, and I hold myself up as an example, and others as examples. But they could also begin to learn more about leadership theories as well, and they can begin to learn about practice in leadership, and they can begin to read about other, and they're cited in the book, other visionary leaders and models and the like. And I have quite a section in there on how to become a visionary leader, which applies specifically to students, college students in particular. Leadership can be learned.
Yes, it can.
Therefore, it is for students.
Yes, sir. Dr. Tisdale, what's next for you?
Well, Tammy, as you know, and I want to thank you for being a part of this next in a way, because right now it is about making certain that I give due diligence to promoting the book and getting it out there. And I thank you and the Tammy Media Group for helping me to do that. Yes. I believe that continuing to tell the Claflin success story through this book is one of the things that I will do. But I'm also very much engaged in reaching out and helping aspiring leaders, future leaders, in terms of mentoring and coaching. At the present time, I'm coaching a new college president, and I expect to continue to do that. I can expect to continue to serve as a mentor for young aspiring leaders. I get calls and they ask, President Tisdale, can I call you and talk to you? I plan to continue to do that, to offer up my experience to those who can learn and become the next generation of visionary leaders.
Wow, that's great. That and Dr. Tisdale, I couldn't see you doing anything else but that, because that's the type of person you are. If you talk to anybody, any student that I've met over the past, from your past 25 years as the president of Claflin University, the one thing that I hear them say that's common is you can always talk to Dr. Tisdale. He always helped me. Same thing they say about First Lady Alice Carson Tisdale. Oh, she was tough now, but she would tell you the truth
That's
and
right.
she would help you. Now I
That's
know that because I work with her. So, she brought me to Claflin. And so I'm grateful to both of you all for having the Claflin experience, because you did hire me, and I do appreciate that. And I'll never forget that experience that I had.
Well, and I thank you for joining us and helping us create this story that is worth telling.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, we're going to show the book, Dr. Tisdale. Willie, we have a copy of the book, folks. This is Beyond the Western Wall, Audacious Transformation of a Small Liberal Arts College. You can get it on Amazon. You want to go to his website. Willie, you can take that and show the website now, where folks can go to the website and purchase the book on the website. And we want to make sure, Dr. Tisdale, that people understand that the website is fabulous. Let me tell you, you go in there, you'll learn about Dr. Tisdale. You see all the pictures. You'll even be able to contact him if you'd like him to come and speak at your university and or your organization.
Yes.
When we talk about leadership, we're not just talking about college. You're talking about being a leader in general. Am I correct in saying that,
That is
Dr.
correct.
Tisdale?
Any organization. Yes.
Yes. So we want people to understand that. He has a LinkedIn page, folks. That's Henry N. Tisdale, PhD. And so you can go to the LinkedIn page and also message him there and talk with him. Dr. Tisdale, one of the things that I always ask my guests, and this is the last question, the 3 words that describe you.
Well, I think the 3 words that would describe me would be consistent, would be leader, and would be supporter.
That's you.
Okay.
That's you. And I have heard folks say all of those things and more. Dr. Tisdale, I want to thank you again for being on the Tammy Show. And we appreciate you, love what you're doing, and are honored to be a part of all that you are doing. So thank you for the opportunity. But thank you for the opportunity and your patience with being on the show tonight with us. This has been an honor for me.
Well, thank you very much, Tammy, for having me on the Tammy Show. I appreciate this, and I'm certain that this will go a long way in terms of what I'm trying to do, and that is to get out the word about, the Claflin success story and my book, Beyond the Western Wall, Audacious Transformation of a Small Liberal Arts College.
That's right. Well, Dr. Tisdale, thank you so much. You have a good night, and we look forward to more. And as I said, if there's anything that we can do here, you know that we are here for you. And I know Willie's shaking his head, saying that's right, Dr. Tisdale. So we thank you again, and God bless you.
Thank you.
All right. Good night. All right. Well, listen, you heard it right here. Dr. Henry N. Tisdale, 8th president of Claflin University, and his book, Beyond the Western Wall, Audacious Transformation of a Small Liberal Arts College. You can purchase it on Amazon. You can go to his website, and yes, you'll be able to purchase the book there. We talk about being intentional, and you heard Dr. Tisdale say that. So I just want to thank you, viewers, for always being intentional with tuning in to Tammy right here on the YouTube channel. Join us next week as our special guest is none other than the professor and author, Damon Fordham. He's going to be joining us and talking about his brand new book and about Black history, some Black history facts. So I want to thank my producers, Alicia, associate producer, senior associate producer, Willie Daniels. Remember, and I want to thank Ashley as well, our guest coordinator. Can't forget about you, Ashley. Thank you. Thank you so much. And of course, T-Vision for letting us use his studios in Charleston. We have a studio now in Charleston. It's called the Dream Studio. So you'll see us more there as well. Please subscribe to the Tammy TV show. That's the YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button and it will notify you. Remember, let's be a blessing to somebody today and every day. Pick up the phone and call that person. Thank you again for being on the show and for joining us. Until the next time, take care of yourself. Bye-bye.